Happy Halloween, everyone. Happy Halloween, Scarlet Witch. How are you?
Well, luckily for you, I do not have the dark hold, so I won't be causing any
You
trouble.
very concerned. So I
Yes.
appreciate that. I don't have any Halloween costumes beyond my old Iron Maiden concert shirt. So maybe I'm just going as maybe I'm just 80s Kip today, or am I always
Okay.
80s Kip? I'm not, am I? But Vish did have a good suggestion that I use my now disgraced Egyptologist fathead stick today.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
thought that's what you would do, and you didn't.
I was
So
looking for it, and I have not seen it since I moved my office upstairs. It's up here. It's here somewhere. I have no idea. Well, and I was out for a while, so I didn't get a chance to really look around to find it, sadly. So this is the best that I could do today, unfortunately. So my apologies, everyone, for not being in the appropriate spirit. But Vish is. So there's that. And you look great.
I mean, I kind of like have an. How can I have an unfair advantage because I cosplay? So I have a lot more on hand to throw something together, than most people.
So did you make all of it?
No, I mean, I ordered this from somebody who cast and printed it. So.
Oh, the
Mhm. The crown,
headpiece.
yeah.
What about the shirt? Did you make the shirt, or
Oh,
is
this is just something I had in my
just an
closet.
order?
We're
Oh,
rocking
nice.
like closet Scarlet Witch cosplay.
Excellent. Cool. That's awesome though. I'm very happy that at least you are in the spirit today. So
Hey, I tried to
good to
tell you.
see. You did. You said it last night, and I was like, yeah. And this
And you didn't
morning
do
it
anything.
just didn't happen. Sorry. It just didn't happen. Good to see you, John. Jesus, what the hell? Between Kip and the Blue Jays in the World Series, I lose that battle.
I mean, because I live in SoCal, I have to say I want it to be Dodgers in 7, but
No,
I don't know.
I see.
I don't know if they're gonna pull
Because
this one out.
so what is it at right now? Because I have no idea.
3-2 Blue Jays. They start
Okay,
today at
all
5.
right. So they could end it today, potentially.
Yeah. I mean, potentially, but
Oh, but they won't. Says Fish. It's
I
not
have no
happening.
idea.
No, not on your watch. So okay. So here's the funny thing. There are many funny things about being Canadian. Here's one of them. There's this, because we're a vast country, but a very a vast country populated by a few people is what it is. And because we're a vast country populated by a few people, there used to be 2 baseball teams in this country, and now there's just 1. But there has been this long-standing tradition that the Blue Jays are Canada's team. This extends very annoyingly beyond baseball into hockey. There are 7 Canadian NHL teams. When it comes to the playoffs, there's among some Canadians, this holds true with hockey, that when a Canadian team is sort of the last one standing in the playoffs, everyone should cheer for them. I do not subscribe to this idea because as a good Canadian, all my closest rivals are my closest friends, and fuck them. If my team isn't winning the Stanley Cup, then I don't want any of your guys' teams to win the Stanley Cup either. So just get the hell out of here. I feel much the same way as about the Blue Jays. I'm not particularly fond of baseball, and Toronto's lame. So whatever, Jays, do whatever you're going to do. It doesn't
Spoken
bother me.
like a true hater.
Yeah, that's right. So that's Kip on baseball, guys, and on being Canadian. So my experience is not everybody's experience, I don't think, but that's what it is. Cenk quoting some Psalm 82 for us. You will die as men, and as one of the princes you will fall. That's right. Nice. Good to see you, Ryan, and Jacqueline, and Lil, and there's a bunch of other people here too, I think, right? So those were the only ones. Oh wow, there is a bunch of other people here. Miranda is here, and Archival Blob, and Prixie, and Holly. Oh yes, for Piha Shirt, everyone.
Shoot. Yeah.
It's I still contend that even though I know this has become the canonical way of spelling it, I don't believe the original was spelled this way. So
Mm.
that's a discussion for another day. It's good to see Cuneiform Guy here. And who else? Oh, old news is good news. I'm not familiar with, but it's good to see you. And Triceratops is here, and Maya is here, and Ian, you are Victoria. Good to see you guys. So, and probably others who are stumbling in late. So is Lawrence here? I don't.
Maybe I mean, I think they had a stream earlier today. I don't know if it's done yet.
I know he launched he released a video today, and I put
Yeah.
I posted the link, so people should go watch it. But wait, maybe until after the stream is done, or just watch both at the same time. Who can't do that, right? So yeah, go watch Lawrence's video. But I did want to say I'm very excited that tomorrow is Budget Scripture Saturday, and because the weasels are unreliable, they will not be in attendance. Which weasels? What are you gonna do, right? And as a result, Nitty's going to be here, and we thought it might be nice to just ask someone from the community to come and join us. So, Lawrence from the Behold Network will be joining us tomorrow night for Budget Scripture Saturday. I'm really excited about it. This is one of these shows that just feels like it was kind of made for Lawrence. So it's going to be great that he's going to be coming and joining us. So, and tomorrow, don't forget, is the last day of daylight savings time before we return to normal. So, yeah, what that also means is that the time for the time for Bad Science Sunday on Sunday is actually going to be different this week, and probably in the foreseeable future, I imagine, because of time change nonsense. But
Right.
yeah, so that's what's happening, and yeah, so tune in tomorrow, guys. All right, today we are going to be talking about a really interesting story in the Bible, because that's what we do around here, because we fucking love the Bible. We talk
Yep.
about interesting Bible shit is what this this channel is all about. So we're going to be talking about a story from the Bible. In my book, this book, I wrote not an entire chapter, but at least half of a chapter about, for those of you who have it, it's chapter 13, Kings and Prophets, and I wrote a good chunk of this chapter about King David, and about what's called the succession narrative, which appears in 2 Samuel chapter 9 through 1 Kings chapter 2. It's a really interesting part of the text, piece of the text. And I like, I think there's a lot that I think is really interesting that I've put in the book. I particularly like chapter 13, Kings and Prophets. It's the longest chapter in the book, but it's also got, I think, some of the more novel. There are a few places I have novel takes. That's a chapter where I have quite a few, and I'm kind of excited about it. So if even, yeah, just read chapter 13. Hell, it's fun. It's you don't have to read all the chapters in order, but that's a good one. They all kind of stand on their own. But yeah. So but I'm going to be drawing a little bit from that today. What I'm talking about today is not something I covered much in chapter 13. It's earlier stuff. This is before the succession narrative. Before we get into that, though, I wanted to just talk briefly about something else. Vish and I streamed 2 weeks ago about a very, very long stream. Today's stream is not going to be that long.
No.
But we did a very, very long stream about crucifixion, about what crucifixion probably meant for people in early Judaism, how we extrapolate from early Jewish perspectives of crucifixion to see what's going on in the in early Christianity. And after that stream, and somebody had posted this in the comments, and I was already sort of thinking in this direction. I believe it was it might have been Sissy Sparrow, I think was the commenter who brought this up. And this is something I had already sort of started to think through, but I've got this bug in my brain, and I wanted to talk a little bit about this today. And that is what I think is kind of an interesting question, and a question that I don't know. Maybe I don't know because I'm not a New Testament scholar, but I don't know that there's been much ongoing scholarly conversations about what Paul thought happened to the body of Jesus. I mean, one of the things we know in our counter-apologetic spaces is that the idea of the empty tomb certainly is a tradition that was almost certainly invented by Christians at a later point in time in order to provide some historical cache. Is it cache or cachet? I've said it both ways. I don't know. But some historical credibility to the resurrection came via the invention of this empty tomb story. It's so apparent to most people that this is something that was later, that even Gary Habermas, the inventor of the minimal facts for the resurrection, won't include the empty tomb, as one of his minimal facts. So like this idea of the empty tomb, of Jesus being buried in the tomb of a rich man, this is all probably not original to what the earliest Christians thought. And this made me think, well, as we were looking at some of these texts of Paul, we focused in most particularly on First Corinthians chapter, what was it? I actually have it here. Chapter 1, where he talks about how the cross of Jesus was an obstacle to the Jews and a stumbling block to the Gentiles, to the Greeks, and to the surrounding nations. And the reason for that, the rationale for that, I think, is because of what he says in Galatians chapter 2. where he then also says that Jesus became a curse in accordance with what he reads in Deuteronomy. Is it chapter 21 or 23? I gotta look at my notes here again. What Paul reads in Deuteronomy chapter 21 regarding how a body that is hanging, a body that's hung in suspension, a dead corpse, effectively curses the land of Israel, which is why, according to the law in Deuteronomy, you can't leave corpses up in suspension for more than a day. Otherwise, the land is in danger of being cursed. So that's why that's a a big impetus behind why there's this seemingly this urgency within the writers of the gospel, this story of the empty tomb. This is part of the urgency to get the body off the cross and interred, because they're concerned about the metaphysical, the spiritual effects of this. And this really got me thinking, and I want to share a little bit from some of the stuff that I was looking at today. And I'm just going to read, I think Gunnar Samuelson has written I mean, I do sometimes shout Jesus when I stub a toe real bad. So you could say Jesus became a curse. You could do that, right? Yeah, that's true. I do that too. So Gunnar Samuelson wrote a pretty exhaustive study, a lexical study. I talked about this 2 weeks ago, on terminology for crucifixion as it appears in the New Testament, and trying to figure out what that means for the New Testament writers against the backdrop of virtually the entirety of Greco-Roman literature and early Jewish tradition and text. So I thought one thing I didn't spend a lot of time on was what he has to say about what Paul has to say. So I wanted to go back here and look at part of this. So I'm just going to read this starting on page 253. This is in his section on the epistles attributed to Paul, where he starts talking about this really important text in Galatians chapter 2. I think it's Galatians 2 here. I'm just going to read this. In Galatians, Paul presents himself as being together with Christ on the staros, Christo sunestromonai, in Galatians 2:19, and the Galatians as having Jesus displayed for their eyes as suspended on the staros, that's the cross, estaromenos, in chapter 3, verse 1. In the next occurrence of this theme, Paul refers to Deuteronomy chapter 21, verses 22 to 23, in such a way that two basic problems call for attention. Paul uses this text when he deals with the theological meaning of the death of Jesus. He says, Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone who is suspended on wood. Ho kremamenos hepi hulon. Now, something I think that's important to point out here is that Paul is consistently using the words starao and staros for describing the crucifixion, even though he's citing this text from Deuteronomy. And this is either an alternative version of the Greek text of Deuteronomy, or he's changing it, because epihulao, upon wood, is not in the Hebrew text of Deuteronomy. So maybe that's in the Septuagint. I don't remember. I would have to actually go and look, but I think possibly not. But in any event, I think that's interesting. The word kremamenos basically just means to hang. So cursed is everyone who is suspended or hanging on wood. So first, Paul does stress the nature. First, he asks this question: does Paul stress the nature of the suspension tool? And basically, well, I'll just keep reading. If so, it is worth noticing that the Hebrew text of Deuteronomy 21:23 appears to say that a person suspended on anything is cursed by God. There is no particular suspension tool mentioned. The currently almost universally added strophe on wood is absent, not only in the Hebrew text, but also in the old versions, Akala, Symmachus, and Theodotion, Peshitta, Targumim, Onkelos, Neophiti, and Pseudo-Jonathan. The suspension tool is added in the Vulgate, the Septuagint, and the Temple Scroll. You guys remember talking about the Temple Scroll? Very important text from the Dead Sea Scrolls with regards to this question of crucifixion. This is puzzling, considering how important the wood feature appears to become for Paul, who essentially follows the Septuagint in his quotation of in Galatians 3:13. Okay, there he says that it's there in the Septuagint. Secondly, Paul's usage of the text puts the definition question in focus. The implied definition of the present investigation, built upon Kuhn's definition, places Deuteronomy 21:22-23 outside the boundaries of crucifixion. To put it in other words, a crucifixion is essentially that which happened to Jesus, an execution by suspension, and that it is not what Deuteronomy 21:22-23 describes. What Deuteronomy 21:22-23 describes, no, he doesn't cite it there, is basically cursed is anyone who hangs on a tree. But before that, it describes how you execute someone and then the body is hung on a tree. That's not what happened to Jesus. And Gunnarsson basically confirms this much in this study. Where was I? Paul nevertheless connects the text of Deuteronomy with the death of Jesus. Thus, Paul connects the death of Jesus, an ante-mortem suspension, so hung up as a method of execution before he's dead, with the text of Deuteronomy 21:22-23, which describes a post-mortem suspension, the hanging up of corpses, dead bodies. He connects an event within the boundaries of the definition of the label crucifixion with a text that describes an event that falls outside the boundaries. Is it then possible to uphold a definition that contradicts the view of Paul? Is it possible to say that crucifixion is one thing and execution, while Paul apparently says that it is another thing, not necessarily an execution? And he says the answer is yes. The reason for this is that it pinpoints the basic theory of this investigation, the late date of the present label, crucifixion. It might be challenging for a contemporary reader that Paul connects the death of Jesus with Deuteronomy 21:22-23, but not for Paul, the author of the Temple Scroll for that, or the author of the Temple Scroll for that matter. You'll remember the author of the Temple Scroll basically changed that text in Deuteronomy 21:22-23 from a post-mortem suspension to an ante-mortem suspension, that you hang up the person, then you kill them. The present reader sees a distinct punishment form called crucifixion, which is not compatible with Deuteronomy 21:22-23, a form of execution. Paul did not see this distinct punishment. For Paul, staros and staruon, that's cross and crucify in English, refer to a diverse suspension punishment in which a person could be suspended alive in order to be killed, like Jesus, or suspended as a corpse after an execution, as in Deuteronomy 21, verses 22-23. Thus, Galatians 3:13 is a witness that Paul, as well as his Jewish and non-Jewish predecessors, saw the suspension punishments as a large and diverse entity. The way Jesus happened to die was but one form of a whole spectrum of suspension punishment. If this conclusion is correct, it would strengthen the basic thesis of the present investigation that the ancient world, the Jewish included, was simply not interested in what way or in what condition a victim was suspended. And I would challenge that a little bit based on some of the stuff that we talked about 2 weeks ago. The important feature was something else, that someone in some condition was displayed as defeated and in shame. As a consequence, it appears that it was not important for Paul that Jesus died on the stauros. If this view is correct, Paul's point of view in Galatians 3:13 is that Jesus could have been stoned before the suspension and then been suspended on wood. Post-mortem, he would be a curse anyhow. Beyond the text of Paul, also the temple scroll links Deuteronomy 21:22-23. I'll pause there for a minute and I'll say, I would agree, yes, that's true, but only, and I think this is important, I think for Paul, the only way you can read this text is that Jesus, the body of Jesus, would only become a curse if it's left up there. Because if you remember in the text of Deuteronomy 21:22-23, it says that you have to take the bodies down after a day. Otherwise, they become a curse on the land. So that, yeah, I would disagree with Samuelson a little bit on that point. From a Jewish point of view, it is not so important whether the condemned were dead or alive when suspended or in what way they were suspended. A suspended, decaying body in the countryside would defile the land anyway. So the important point here is that within the Jewish mindset of this period, suspended bodies, if they're left up, hanging for more than a day, will defile the land. That's why you have to get them down. Now, the reason I think this is really interesting is because what Paul says in Galatians is that, and maybe I'll just finish this. Paul follows this Jewish view when he connects Deuteronomy 21:22-23 with the execution of Jesus. So, what I want to say, in addition to this, or where I'm going with this, what really prompted me thinking about this is Paul says that Jesus became a curse. That's the whole reason why he mentions this in connection to Deuteronomy 21 verses 22-23. That only happens if the body of Jesus is left up on the cross. So now this has me thinking, as I'm looking at these texts in Paul, that maybe it seems likely to me that for Paul, and maybe for this earliest layer, this earliest stage of Christianity that we can access, maybe the idea was that he was up there for more than just a single day. Maybe it was that he was executed in a traditional Roman fashion in which you hung the body up there and you just left it there until it rotted and decayed, and you took it down and disposed of it in a pit. So I am interested in this idea. I think it's something that is worth further consideration. But I also think that in conjunction with what our conversation last week, we said it, or 2 weeks ago. Sorry, we said it a couple weeks ago. I'm going to repeat it again. This also only makes sense if this is something that actually happened in the land of Israel. The land doesn't become cursed unless there's bodies hanging up in the land of Israel. And that's essentially what Paul is saying happened. So So there. Any thoughts on that? I'd love it if you guys have any questions or comments or reflections on that. Let me know. Archival blob. So if I get your sense correctly, you mean that the reading from Galatians could support that Jesus was actually left on the cross to become a curse? Yes. I don't see how else you can read Paul to say something otherwise. That's effectively what the text in Deuteronomy says. So you get it. But was there a belief that the individual was cursed as well as the land? Now, that's a good question, and I don't know. That is something I will have to look up, Holly. But I like that as a way of further exploring this idea. So, yeah. So, anyways, crucifixion, and that was the Halloween portion of the show. So, by the way, I watched 2 nights ago. I watched the first episode in the new series on HBO. Welcome to Derry. It's based on Stephen King's
How did
It.
that go?
It's good. I like it. I probably am not. I'm not as sophisticated as you are, Vish. So I'm a simple man, and as a result, you know what? I really liked it. It's got. I think I mentioned this to you and Dapper. It's got a giant winged mutant demon baby in it, which is pretty great. So
Okay.
But yeah, and it takes place in 1961, 62, 61, 62, right around there. I like period shows. They're kind of fun. So that's yeah, thank you. Scott Graves, Welcome to Derry is great. And there was a good twist in the first episode. Yeah, it was I was pretty happy with it. I fell asleep halfway through and had to go back and finish, but that wasn't the fault of the show. It's because these days I fall asleep watching everything. So, you know, that's just
Grandpa
my life
energy.
lately. Yeah, grandpa energy. So I wonder if my grandson is coming over tonight. Hopefully. Anyways. Okay. Yeah. So let's get on to things that Vish finds much more interesting. And let's talk about this story of David in 1 Samuel chapter 25. So there's we're going to go through this a couple ways, and maybe if you can just put the text up on the screen, Vish. I've got my own translation of it, and I'll read it, but we can use this for reference as well. So this is the story. Most people know this story. This is the story of Abigail and David. And here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to read through the story, my translation of it, and think about this in a couple of different ways. First, we're going to read the story the way that I think the writer wants you to hear the story. And then we're going to talk about, I'll point out a few things, some interesting features in the text, and how this story fits into the larger program of the Deuteronomists. This is the historian who's basically putting together this very large, comprehensive in their minds, history of the kingdoms of Judah and Israel, that appears in Joshua, Judges, 1st and 2nd Samuel, and 1st and 2nd Kings. So we'll look at how this kind of fits in to there. But then I want to go back and I want to look at a couple of things in here again, because while from a scholarly perspective, there's nothing that we can tie from the stories of David to things that actually happened. There's, a pretty common thread within modern scholarship that suggests David may not even have existed. If he did exist, we know nothing about him. And I tend to more towards that camp, although I also think that there's so much material within First and Second Samuel that pretty strongly indicates there were these old stories and sources and tales that were circulating around for a long time. And I am very fond of this idea that these are deeply propagandistic reflections on the life of the founder of, not the founder of any United Kingdom. There was no United Kingdom of Judah and Israel. There was no kingdom of Saul, David, and Solomon that controlled the entire region. That never happened. But I think that there probably was a David, and that David was probably the dynastic founder of, the kingdom in Jerusalem that survived up to the exile, basically. And I think there are some elements that we can glean about who this character was from First and Second Samuel. And one of the reasons for that is because, there's a lot of pretty terrible stuff in those stories. If you read the text carefully, closely, David is on the one hand heavily lionized. He is if this is a heroic vision of David, but he's also a deeply problematic character, figure. And there's some awkward parts in the Deuteronomist's telling of the story of David, which makes it seem like he's working very hard, very hard to cover some things that are maybe less flattering of the dynastic founder. So in the second part, I want to go back and I want to think through what this story looks like if we take it seriously as something that potentially might have happened, something that potentially is part of the lore of David, this actual person who lived and founded. That's the one, Lil Warlord David, founded the kingdom of Judah. Lawrence calls him Big Dick David, and there's a lot of that. I think we see some of that in this story, actually. So I'm going to read my translation to start, and here, yeah, we've got the text up here too, so people can follow this and listen to me. This is how I think the writer wants you to hear this story. There was a man in Maon. Oh, let's go to verse 2. Verse 1 here. Samuel died, and all Israel gathered, and they lamented for him, and they buried him in his house in Ramah. And David went up, David rose and went down to the Midbar, the wilderness of Paran. All right, and here is where the story starts proper. There was a man in Maon, and his work was in Carmel. The man was very great. He had 3,000 flocks and 1,000 goats. He's very rich. Okay. This happened when he was shearing his flock in Carmel. The name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his woman was Abigail. The woman had good insight and a beautiful form. The man was hard and wicked of deeds. He was Kalbo, is the word there. What does it do here on Sephadia? Vish. Yeah, so you see this here, Kalbo, in the round bracket.
Yeah, it's a either a manuscript difference or a caricative.
It's a Karev. It's a Karev Kativ, I believe, in the versions, and so what's happening here is this is the consonantal text Kalvo, which is what I read. It's been corrected by the rabbis to read Kalabi, which is a Calebite, so someone from the tribe of Caleb. We're going to talk about this because I think it's important to this story. So continuing. He was Kalbo. David was in the midbar when he heard that Nabal was shearing his flock. So David sent 10 boys, and he said to the boys, "Go up to Carmel, and you will come to Nabal, and you will inquire on his well-being in my name. So you shall say, strength for life, peace to you, peace to your house, and peace to all that is yours. So then, I have heard that you are currently shearing. The shepherds who are yours were with us, and we did not harass them, nor were they missing anything of theirs the entire time they were in Carmel. Ask your own boys, and they will tell you. Now let these boys," he's talking about the these isn't there, that's something I added. "Now let these boys, the ones that David sent to him, find favor in your eyes, for they have come on a good day. Please give what you find in your hand to the slaves and to your son, to David." Very deferential. So David's boys came and they spoke something like all these words in the name of David. Then they waited. But Nabal responded to the slaves of David and he said, I kind of love this actually. "Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? These days, there are a lot of slaves running off from before their owners. Am I to take my bread, my watered, my butchered meats that I butchered myself with my bare hands for my shearers and give to men who come from I don't know where?" So the slaves of David turned around on their way. They went back, entered in, and reported to him something like all these words. And David said to his men, "Every man strap on your sword." So every man strapped on his sword. David also strapped on his sword. And Big Dick David, right? That's what Lawrence said. And they went up after David as a company of 400, while 200 sat with the weapons. But to Abigail, the woman of Nabal, one boy from the group of boys reported, "Look, David sent messengers from the midbar to bless our Lord, and he shouted them down." He's a total tattletale, this kid. He's a narc.
Snitches get stitches.
Snitches get stitches. "These men were very good to us. They did not harass us, nor were we missing anything all the days that we were hanging out with them while we were in the field. Nothing. They were missing nothing. They were a wall around us day and night, all the days we were with them shepherding the flock. Now know and see what you want to do. This terrible thing is coming for our owner and on his entire house. He is a son of Belial," when speaking to him. Abigail was quick. She took 200 loaves and 2 jars of wine, 5 prepared flock, 5 measures of roasted grain, 100 raisin cakes, 200 fig cakes, and she set them upon donkeys. Then she said to her boys, "Go on before me. Look, I am coming behind you." But to her man Nabal, she did not say anything. So she was riding on a donkey, and she went down in the covering of the mountain. I don't know what that means, but it's interesting. "But look, David and his men are coming to meet her." She encountered them. David had said, "Only for a lie it was that I was keeping all of this guy's stuff while in the midbar, and there was nothing missing but his. but he has returned to me evil for this good thing. May God do to the enemies of David even more if I leave from all that are until the morning pissers on the wall. It's gonna kill everybody who pisses on the wall. Yeah, that's fun. When Abigail saw David, she was quick again. She got down from the donkey, and she fell under the wrath of David upon her face. She bowed low to the ground. Then she fell upon his feet, and she said, "This oversight is on me, my lord. Let your slave woman please speak in your ears. Listen to the words of your slave. Please let my lord not set his heart to this man of Belial upon Nabal. As his name, so he is." Why
Yeah.
does she say that, Vish?
I mean, it's a pun on his name.
Yes. What does
I
Nabal
love
mean?
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does
It's an
Nabal
interesting
mean?
way to render that being bore. Let's see. Belial al Naval Ki Shmo Kinhu Naval Shmo Unvala I mean, I guess bore or
Yeah.
stupid
I think
or
stupid is good. Idiot.
yeah.
I titled the stream David and the Idiot, or
I was
David
gonna say
and the wife of an idiot.
you could
So
translate this as pendejo. So
that's
this muy
Spanish, I'm
pendejada.
assuming.
Yeah,
So yeah, I
that
don't
could
know that
work.
language. But yeah, he's and so I mean right away I got to say this at the outset. Look, this guy's name was not Nabal. Whoever this was. This is right. I mean, this is if you're reading a story and in the story, once upon a time there was a man named Moron. And this is what happened when David met the idiot, right? So that's pretty important. And this is something that the Abigail draws attention to in her plea to David. As his name, so he is. She says he is just as stupid as his name. An idiot, and stupidity is with him. But I am your slave woman. I did not see my Lord's boys, whom you sent. So now, my Lord, by the life of Yahweh and the life of your being, that Yahweh has restrained you from coming in blood and delivering by your own hand for yourself. So now your enemies shall be like Nabal, and those who are pursuing harm for my Lord. Honestly, this is an interesting speech for a woman to to say to the man who's coming to kill her husband. Kind of is.
Listen, if he's an idiot,
maybe she just wants out. Is that it? She's just
like, you know what?
She's just like,
sure would be to be rough if something happened to him. You know,
I
being a
don't
business
know.
and all. Like,
you never know, right? Oh, where was I? Okay, yes. So now your enemies shall be like Nabal, and those who are pursuing harm for my Lord. And now this is a blessing that your slave has brought to my Lord, and given to the boys who are walking in my Lord's steps. Take up, please, your slave woman's error. Forgive her error. For Yahweh will make certain the endurance of my Lord's house. Since the wars of Yahweh my Lord is fighting, and evil shall not be found in any of your days. Whenever a man has risen up to pursue after your life, the life of my Lord will be bundled up in a bundle of lives with Yahweh your God. But the life of your enemies, he will sling it in the hollow of a sling. Then, when
get it?
Yahweh will...
David rose to power by
You
slaying
get that?
Goliath with
That's
stones and a sling.
clever, right? The
Yeah.
sling and the Deuteronomist is he's an artist. guys. He really is.
Mm.
So, he will sling it in the hollow of a sling. Then, when Yahweh will do for my Lord all the good things he has spoken concerning you, and decreed you to be ruler over Israel, let this not be for you an obstacle for you, and an offense of heart for my Lord. May you remember your slave woman. And David said to Abigail after this speech, by the way, this is, I believe, the longest speech by a woman in the Bible, Hebrew Bible, right? I believe that to be the case. I have to double check, but it's extensive. It's a lot of words for a simple little woman. Don't clip that, please. I didn't say that. That's what
Too
the
late.
text is saying. And David said to Abigail, "Blessed is Yahweh, God of Israel, who sent you today to meet me. Blessed is your good sense, and you are blessed. The one who restrained me this day from coming in blood and delivering with my own hand for myself. On the contrary, by the life of Yahweh, God of Israel, he has held me back from hurting you. Hadn't you not been quick and come to meet me, then none would have remained in Nabals until the light of morning of those who piss against the wall." So David took from her hand what she had brought him. He said to her, "By me, peace to your house. See, I have heard your voice, and I am lifting up your face. I forgive you." And Abigail went to Nabal, and look, he was feasting in his house like the feasting of a king. The heart of Nabal was good upon him, to the point that he was very drunk. So she did not say a word to him, neither small nor great, until the light of the morning. Then, when morning came, when the wine evacuated from Nabal, then his woman told him these words, and his heart died inside him. He became a stone. And after 10 days, so I'm like, it's interesting here. If you follow the heart
Probably
dies
had a stroke.
inside, he became like stone. Yeah, maybe a stroke. Probably that.
He had a stroke, and then he died.
After 10 days, Yahweh struck Nabal, and he died.
Yeah.
When David heard that Nabal had died, he said, "Blessed is Yahweh, who has taken up the matter of my insult by the hand of Nabal. His slave he has spared from evil, but the evil of Nabal Yahweh has returned upon his head." So David sent back and informed Abigail that he was taking her for himself, a woman. And the slaves of David came to Abigail, to Carmel, and they spoke to her, saying, "David has dispatched us to you to take you for himself, a woman." And she rose up, she bowed low her nose to the ground, and she said, "Look, your slave woman is a slave girl who will wash the feet of your own slaves." So she was quick. She got up, mounted her donkey, and 5 of her girls were going in her footsteps. And she followed after the messengers of David and became his woman. Then David took Ahinoam from Jezreel, and they were, even both of them, his women. But Saul had given Michal, his daughter, a woman of David, to Palti, son of Laish from Galim. And that's the story.
Huh.
What are your thoughts on this story, Vish?
That is an interesting name.
Ahinoam.
Ahinoam.
My brother. What is Noam?
No, isn't that from Naum or like Oracle or?
No, that's with an olive.
Is that a different? Oh,
yeah, that's
with an olive.
Noon olive. So, but I don't know
Homophones,
what
man.
does it. It's hard. They're hard. Homophones are hard, people. What does Naam mean though? Because I don't know it offhand. To be pleasant, lovely. So maybe this
Pleasant.
is my brother's great.
My brother's nice. My brother's great.
My
He's
brother's
nice.
my brother's awesome. I love Hebrew names are just, some of these are like, I'm often reminded because there's a lot of them, right? There's a lot of Abimelechs in the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
which means my father is the king. So,
Yeah.
and honestly, this seems like not an unrealistic name for a king to give to his son,
I mean,
in case there was any
also,
doubt.
maybe it's because I watch too much true crime, but
Mm.
the fact that Abigail is like, "Yo, look, my husband's real dumb, so just don't kill him. Like, he's just real dumb, okay?" And then she comes back and he's like super drunk, just plastered, and she thinks, "Ugh, shit again."
Ugh,
So she's used to letting him
this
sleep it
again.
off.
Yeah.
This again. And, she catches him in the morning when he's hungover and is like, "Hey, I bribed the king. All right." And he freaks out and has a stroke. And then he dies 10 days later. I'm thinking, man, that worked out really well for her. If this were, a true
If
crime
this is,
story,
yeah.
they would
Yeah.
find that she had just taken out a life
Oh.
insurance policy on
Oh.
him, or the,
Honestly, he was
whatever.
dead when I got here.
Listen,
I
I
don't know what
told
happened.
him what happened, and he
And
just
he died. He just
it
it
locked
just
up.
happened.
He had his heart died.
10
It wasn't
days. He
me.
was
He
there
just
for
freaked
10
out.
days. Just, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't put
Very,
anything in his
it's very
wine. I didn't
believable.
smother him. I didn't do anything. He just had a heart attack or a stroke or something. It was totally happenstance.
Yeah.
By
Yeah.
the way, King David, I'm
That's
single.
good.
Just saying. Go from
He's not the
marrying a
king
complete
yet.
to like marrying the king, or
Still
marrying David, who
he's
will become the
he's
king.
he's still a warlord at this
Still a
point.
warlord.
Still
I mean, that's
roving the countryside and harassing people.
at least he's not a dumbass.
Yes,
You know.
fair. He's not an idiot.
Would you rather be married to an idiot or somebody who has a lot of power and a reputation?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a question for the chat. I'm not answering that question, because it's probably going to get me in trouble. So, it is, yes, that's a question for the chat. We've got a couple of super chats, by the way, before we continue, don't we?
Archival says, "Why is the heart attack shaped like a knife?" Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
So, let's look. I got a few super chats, and then we'll continue.
Okay.
So, first, Tad is mad for $5. Thank you. Don't leave your messiahs hanging around willy-nilly. Deuteronomy, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
That's good
I
advice.
do. I like it. It's very good advice. Thank you for the super chat. Turkey sloth. I don't recognize turkey sloth, but welcome.
I do.
We fucking love the Bible around here. Oh, good. From where? Doesn't matter. Do your thoughts about enemy Canadian NHL teams in the playoffs after your team's elimination carry over to Buffalo, Detroit, and Seattle because of their proximity to Canada? And the answer to this question, and I don't know, maybe you guys will find this interesting, but not at all. Not at all. Not at all. There is, and I think there's a tradition in this country called Hockey Night in Canada, which is every Saturday night on CBC. And it's, been on for, I don't know, like 60, 70 years. It's a long time. Back in the old days, there were just 2 Canadian NHL franchises in Toronto and Montreal. But then after 1967 or 70, either 1967 or 1970, I think the 3rd Canadian NHL franchise entered. Started playing, and then eventually there were 7 teams. And as the tradition holds, there is a Canadian team at least every single game on Hockey Night in Canada. And it's to the point now that there's usually 3 games every Saturday, and every single one features at least one Canadian team. Several times 2 Canadian teams. They schedule these things specifically to be on Saturdays so that there's lots of Canadian hockey content on Saturdays. There is a day every February. It's usually the 2nd or 3rd weekend of February. 2nd or 3rd Saturday is now, and it's not an official thing, but it's become a 25 years now, I think, tradition called Hockey Day in Canada, where all 7 Canadian teams play that day. 6 of them obviously play each other, and the 7th one plays an American team, and it kind of rotates. But all the games are on Hockey Night in Canada. So all that to say that since there's been Canadian NHL hockey, there have been these built-in deep rivalries between all the Canadian teams. Some of them are closer than others. I mean, you guys will recognize that I fucking hate the Edmonton Oilers more than just about anything. And I mean anything. Because I grew up as a Calgary Flames fan, and there's 320 kilometers that separate these 2 cities, and it was natural. Through the 1980s.
You and Paul Gia are mortal enemies.
Yes, it does. It certainly does. And on that note, maybe I need to just play this because
you literally are talking about.
We did miss a chat from Kip. Mark pointed out. Yeah, Kip never said anything important.
Oh, that's because that was during when
Dead Screen Scrolls were written thousands of years ago, Kip. Nobody cares.
Okay, so Kip, actually I'm not reading this one.
I'll read it.
No.
I'm heading to bed very satisfied in the unimpeachable fact that the Oilers suck. Wow. Good night, everybody. And he's left, so you can't even reply. He dropped the mic. That's it. It's the only reference we need to make to that tonight. Moving on.
Yeah, fuck. All right.
That is the maddest I have ever seen, Paul.
He did not talk to me for like it was like 5 days after that.
That is the
but
maddest
for context, and to be fair, that was 2 days after the Edmonton Oilers were eliminated from the Stanley Cup Finals last year. So that was a fresh wound. And I am a terrible.
I grew up in
person.
Alabama, where the rivalry is even more bitter than that. People commit felonies for their football teams, so believe me, I am well aware of the low blows and the petty sniping and so forth. So don't hate the player, hate the game.
So that's Canadian hockey, right? And Turkey Sloth, to just get back to your question here, like Buffalo, Detroit, Seattle, it's just not the same. And there are regional rivalries, right? Like Detroit and Toronto, because they're pretty close to each other. Back when Detroit was really good, that was a pretty fierce rivalry. Same with like Boston and Montreal is like a famously bitter rivalry because they're not that far away from each other. I expect, given enough time, Seattle and Vancouver is going to be a bitter rivalry. I just don't think there's enough time that's transpired yet. And Seattle's kind of sucked this whole time too. So yes,
this has been giving me life. Y'all saw the photo. Pope Leo was presented with a Cubs jersey by his fellow Chicagoan, Mar Awa,
So
the
good.
head of the Assyrian Church of the East.
So
Incredible
good.
Midwest trolling going on in the high churches.
Yes.
Leo's from the South Side, so he's a White Sox fan. And giving him the jersey of their like arch enemy was just
the most bitter
epic
of
level
rivals.
troll.
Yes, it absolutely absolutely was. So but thank you for that. Thank you for that happy distraction. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And then one more here. Wow, thanks for the $20. Andy. I'm Andy. Thoughts on Isaiah's ministry being during the only 4 co-regencies in Judahite king lineage, and thoughts on kings on both sides having the same name at nearly the same time: Joash, Ahaziah, Joram, etc. And happy Halloween. Yes, happy Halloween. Boy, I have never thought about this. And so unfortunately I have no thoughts except that looks really interesting. So I will need, this is something that that I am interested in looking into now. Are those all really co-regencies? The who is it? Uzziah, Ahaz, Hezekiah, and Manasseh. I'm not sure. I'm gonna go. I'll have to go dig in some sources for that. It seems, actually, I would say on the last one, I know a lot of, well, yeah, potentially. Actually, that's possible. So like Manasseh is said to have ruled for over 50 years. And I know scholars and historians have suggested that he was like he was really young when he became king too. Usually that will happen only if your father dies or is just gravely incapacitated. At which point I don't even know. Yeah, good questions. Really interesting. Kings on both sides having the same name at nearly the same time: Joash, Ahaziah, Joram, etc. I wonder if the suggestion here is that this could be a fishy indicator that some of this stuff is just even the conflation of traditions, north and south, for some of these rulers. I would have to look into it. And I tend to take a fairly straightforward approach, as is taking the text on its face, starting basically from when we can anchor some of these things in history, which is the Omride dynasty. Omri and his son Ahab are like the earliest rulers in the region that we know of from third-party sources. But from that point forward, I have just traditionally accepted that the king's lists are accurate insofar as the order and the names, and probably ballparking actual periods of reign, and then just about everything else you can dispute. But it's a really, really interesting question. I am sorry that I don't have I have more, but I will look into this, and thank you for that, for bringing that to my attention.
As a Cubs fan, chef's kiss.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Good.
It's pretty great. Okay.
The look on Leo's
All right.
face is just such this
Yes,
little
I
smile.
know,
You
right?
you can tell he's thinking, I could launch a crusade over this.
Oh, you can tell he wants to. Yes, he's mad.
New schisms.
He's mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's taking it
He's
in good, good humor,
but the inside he's like, oh god damn it. Although he's
screaming
probably
on the
not.
inside, yeah.
Yes, he's screaming on the inside is what's happening there. So yeah. So that's fun. But let's talk some more about the story. Now, you pointed out, Vish, that one of the things of this story sort of looks like Abigail is smart enough to see that she's stuck with a deadbeat and could do better.
Yeah.
So that's a and
I mean, look.
honestly,
There is a potential reading that you could put out there where
Mm.
she takes all of this stuff and basically pays her own dowry
yes.
and is just like, be ashamed
Hey.
if something happened to my dumbass husband.
Yes. Yeah. That's that is a credible reading of this story.
Oh my god, no. Hang on. Han perdido, they lost. Yeah, there's a clip of Leo going through some street in Italy and people are yelling out stuff about the Sox.
Oh, really?
And he just han perdido, they lost, and he's all upset. Like or the
awesome.
Cubs lost or something. He was talking about baseball, and I just love that we have an American Pope from Chicago who you can just randomly shout baseball stuff at. Love it.
That's awesome.
Oh, there's a super chat from Brandon Runyon.
Oh, Kasvilaka. Oh, thank you for your silver, Brandon.
Money
I
for you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, silver
So
for you.
I hope that wasn't all of it. But I will very happily take what you have given, and I will use it wisely. By the way, Brandon is and I are in Dr. Josh's Acadian class together.
Cool.
So yeah, so that's pretty great. All right, a couple of observations about this story. First of all, we drew some attention to the name Nabal, which means idiot,
Pendejo.
stupid man, bored. What Vish said, that thing that Vish said that I'm not
Pendejo.
going to say. Thank you, pendejo. Did I say it okay?
Mhm.
Nice. All
Yeah.
right. So pendejo. But there's more to this. There's a couple places. Notice that Abigail, in the provisions that she's put together here, I probably should have included verse numbers. I often don't do that when I'm translating, but that would be useful sometimes. But when she's putting provisions together here, it says that she took 200 loaves and 2 jars of wine. Let's put this back up.
Okay.
Let's scroll back up to where it's keep going. Keep going. This is her speech, so it's just before this. Okay. Little more. There we go. Look at what it has here. Mata'im lechem, 200 loaves. Ushnaim, what is that? Nivle
2.
yayin.
Yeah.
Nivle yayin. The word there is I'm just gonna get the vocalization right here. Where are my notes? Damn it. So these are navel is the word. It's consonantally identical to naval.
Mhm.
Naval.
And when she comes home and he's completely hammered.
And then what does it say in verse 37? Go to verse 37, because this is I love this. Verse 37, she comes home, he's full of wine, right? Like a navel. Then look at what it says in verse 37. The next morning, Bitzeit hayin min Nabal. I translated that. I don't like this when Nabal had slept it off. when Nabal had slept off the wine. That's not what the text says. I translated this as when here's what I said, when morning came, when the wine evacuated from Nabal.
He threw up.
When it's literally the wine had come out of him, he threw out,
He
or
threw
he
up.
pissed. I like to think he just pissed it out. So that's quite often what I do in the morning after drinking. But maybe he threw it up. But I don't. With all the
mean,
pisses on the wall, it makes me think that he pissed it out,
I'm
but-
like, okay, they probably would have said it that way.
So,
But,
but this is, it's kind of, I love this picture though of the wine coming out of him as a, the navel is the jar that holds the wine. Naval is the stupid man who can't hold his. So
Yeah.
yeah. So that's fun. Naval and Nabal. There's more here though. So Abigail and Nabal in this story, look at what it says right at the outset, right at the beginning, when the two of them are introduced. The name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his woman was Abigail. We've already established that Nabal means idiot. Abigail means something like pleasure of my father, or pleasing to my father, something like that, right? And then there's this description here, this contrast set between the two of them. The woman had good insight and a beautiful form. So she was really smart and she was really good looking.
she's smart and pretty.
She's smart and pretty. The golden ticket.
That's right. You're like, you can't be both. Abigail.
The man was hard. And don't be gross, Chad. The man was hard and wicked of deeds. He was, and then it says here, and we'll talk about this next. He was Calbo. This is where it says he was a Calebite. So when you've got this contrast set between Abigail and Nabal, I can't help but think of what's going on in like places like in the book of Proverbs, where you have this personified contrast there between Lady Wisdom and the stupid woman. And this is very similar. And I think this whole tale has is drawing on a lot of that sort of ethos, some of the language and the concepts and the ideology that we see at work in the book of Proverbs. And this is actually something for a while now, probably the last 30 years or so, something that scholars have been paying really close attention to are close connections between the book of Deuteronomy and the wisdom texts, and not just the Hebrew Bible wisdom text, but wisdom texts outside of the Hebrew Bible as well. We know of a few, the book of Ben Sira, which was written in Hebrew, and we actually have fragments of Hebrew Ben Sira in at Matzadah and at Qumran, and it was translated into Greek in like 180 BCE. But we also have this really, really interesting text in the Dead Sea Scrolls called Instruction, that survives in several copies, and it was massive. It was a huge work, huge document, very, very similar to the Proverbs. and you've got a lot of this kind of stuff going on in early Jewish literature. So scholars have been paying really close attention to just, like I said, the ethos, the worldview, the concepts at work in wisdom literature, and how much these also appear reflected in the book of Deuteronomy, in the Deuteronomistic history. So it kind of makes sense if the Deuteronomist is using this story as a way to contrast the wise woman and the stupid man, right? So that's interesting. So the word there, or he's called hard. This is the word kaseh. Sorry, katseh. No, sorry, kaseh. I'm reading the transliteration. Sorry, and I can't read the transliteration clearly.
Just
So
read,
I'm just
read it off the scroll, Kip.
okay. I'll bring it up. Yeah, okay, yes, he was kasha. Thank you. So uh there's I'll just read this to you. So this is from a commentary by, who is this? This is Ald in the Old Testament Library, has this to say, which I think is really interesting. He says Nabal is described first as kasha. This adjective is used of hard labor, hard fighting, blunt answers. However, it is used twice more in Samuel of people. David says of Joab and Abishai that they are more kashim than he. They're harder than he is. And Hannah describes herself to Eli as kashat ruach. That's the text I translated in my book in one of the chapters. This one actually in chapter 13. So this is where she Hannah is the mother of Samuel. She is barren, which is a very common theme throughout the Hebrew Bible, barren women who have children. She throws herself before the altar in the tabernacle at Shiloh, begging Yahweh for a child. The text says that she's muttering under her breath, that so her lips are moving but no sounds coming out. And Eli responds to her that that he thinks she's drunk, and so he tells her to sober up and conduct herself with decorum. And her response to him is, "No, I'm a woman in anguish. I'm pouring my heart out to Yahweh." But then the text, she also says that she is a woman of kashat ruach, of hard spirit. She's determined. She's obstinate. She's like a dog chasing a car. Once she's, she is obsessed by this thing, and she's just not going to let it go, right? Perhaps Hannah, continues Ald, no less than Nabal and the sons of Zeruiah, should be thought of as obstinate or determined. No one else in the Hebrew Bible is described exactly like Nabal as evil in deeds. However, the prophets frequently complain elsewhere about their people and the evil of their deeds. And in one case, in Judges 2:19, the deeds and obstinate are closely linked. Actually, let me just bring that up, and I'll read that. So it's an interesting way of describing him, though, and I wonder too if this might be something that we can also, when we start talking about history in the story, maybe this is something we should think about as we talk about that here in a few minutes. In Judges 2:19, it says, and this is the JPS, but when the chieftain died, they would again act basely. They turned from their fathers. They would act basely even more than the preceding generation, following other gods, worshiping them, bowing down to them. They omitted none of their practices. So that's mima lelechem. It's the same word as the deeds here of Nabal. And their stubborn ways. That's umadarchem hakasha. It's the same word. Their hard ways. So stubborn. Nabal is stubborn. That's what I think it says. So yeah.
What is the root word for ma'alalim?
Oh, that's a good question. Is that ma'a? Is it it's alal. Let me look that up. So things that where is that? Alal is suggested in. Is there a link here? Or why is there no link? I have to actually do this manually. Nope. Oh wait, no, I did that wrong. Sorry. Alal. So it usually means to be busy.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's usually used in the Kal for drinking excessively or repeatedly. In the Poel, it's used for gleaning, deal severely. So in the hit pal, to deal with someone wantonly or play a dirty trick on someone. So, but it means the noun, the nominal form means deeds. It'd be interesting to look back and see if it's got that sort of connotation, like these are bad deeds on their own, even without ra.
What would change if you read that as kashe vara ma'alalim v'hu kalvo? What would change?
Oh, yes, let's talk about this, shall we? That's next. Let me just look at my notes. So, I'll say one more thing here, and then we'll talk about Calvo. The Deuteronomist is one of the goals of the Deuteronomist in this story is to emphasize David's moral quality. I think that comes through pretty clearly. You notice how deferential he is in his approach to Nabal. He has this moment of, and that's really a major point, a major factor for the Deuteronomist too. You'll notice that he has this point where he's like, I've been wronged and I'm going and getting my revenge. And Abigail basically stops him from this from blood guilt, from taking out vengeance on Nabal. And I think this is very important for the Deuteronomist, that David didn't kill Nabal, that Yahweh killed Nabal, right?
I'm not saying
and
Abigail had anything to do with it. not saying that.
Yeah, but Yahweh. So, but this is one of, and she makes this. She really harps on this point in her speech. She's like, "You can't do this, because you're doing all this great stuff for Yahweh. It wouldn't look good. It would look bad. So you should just trust that Yahweh is going to look after all your enemies, including
You don't want to hit the guy with
idiot.
glasses, David. He's just dumb. Let God handle it. Like,
Yes, exactly.
he's
Right?
so dumb.
It's just a dummy. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, let's talk about Calbo. Where's my note on this? I wish this
Chuck
was
is saying
better
that
organized.
only God had motive and opportunity.
There we go.
Yes.
All right. So there's this interesting textual corruption here. The consonantal text says kalbo, kaf lamed bet vav. It's been corrected by the rabbis to read kalibi, kaf lamed bet yod, Calebite. Vuhu kalibi. He was a Calebite. Maybe, but Ald points out here, and I'll just read him, and I quite like this. The culmination in the introduction, he says, to Nabal is also its most controversial element. The official reading in the Masoretic text of the last word in the Hebrew text is Kalibi or Calebite. The Greek text has read the same four consonants, Kalibi, as an adjective from Caleb, dog. He's like a dog. However, neither Calebite nor dog-like occurs elsewhere in the Hebrew. So this would be an anomalous form. The consonants actually written in the MT are Kaf, Lamed, Bet, Vav, and that does make perfectly good sense if we take Kaf as the preposition, Lev as the noun, Vav as the pronominal suffix. Did you see that? Because you're
That's what I'm asking.
because you're smart and pretty, right? Yeah, and that does make perfectly good sense. As his heart, and there's other stuff in this text. Did you notice a couple of those places? I paused for effect. I pointed this out. There are several of these places in the text where the heart is mentioned. The heart is featured. What happens to Nabal when Abigail
his heart
tells
dies.
him? His heart dies inside of him, right?
Yeah. I think that's also saying, like, as another person in the chat earlier, stupid is as stupid does. He wasn't just evil of deeds. His heart was rotten too. Like, his evil deeds were as wicked as his heart was,
Yes. I think this is right. I think this is what the text is supposed to read.
Your
I'll just continue here.
actions were horrible, just like your heart.
Yeah. After all that has been said about Nabal and his wife, the final element may be, and he was a Calebite, or, and he was dog-like, or, and he was according to his heart. In favor of the Ketiv, what's written, the latter one, the final option, there is a close parallel in, I don't know what BTH is. Somebody know what BTH is?
Sparrow the Sizzy is saying clearly it means he was a werewolf.
Nice.
I'm obligated to read that because it's Halloween.
Yeah,
maybe Naval had a werewolf bar mitzvah. Do you know about that?
No, I don't.
Oh my god! So there's this thing you can look at. I think it was from Community Parks and Rec? Doesn't matter. But Tracy Morgan is dressed up as a werewolf and he sings a song about having a spooky, scary boys becoming men, men becoming wolves. Werewolf bar mitzvah, spooky, scary. Yeah, 30 Rock. Thank you. It's the whole thing, and he has all these really clever verses to go with it, and yeah.
I'll have to go find that. I didn't watch 30 Rock.
It's the season.
That's awesome.
I'll have to send that to you.
It's the season.
So, yeah, this is it. This is canon. Nabal had a werewolf bar mitzvah. Calling it.
So, so here there's a close parallel in 2 Samuel 7:21, Kalibika, because of your word and according to your heart, you have done all this greatness. The orientation of Caleb's heart is manifest in behavior that is, in fact, the very opposite of Yahweh's greatness. First Samuel 13, verse 14. it's interesting because this is the only place in the entire text, First Samuel chapter 13 verse 14, where this expression is used, and yet this is the way that we universally have come to think of David. He was a man after or according to the heart of Yahweh. He was a man after God's own heart. Caleb is like his own heart, right? Yeah.
Wicked.
So he says, in favor of the Gentilic, we could plead the locality called the Negev of Caleb at the other end of the section of the book, 1 Samuel 30, verse 14. And given the low estimate of dogs in Samuel and the Hebrew Bible generally, the interpretation in the Septuagint should in no way be discounted. We should recall that David has just likened himself, ironically, to a dead dog in chapter 24, verse 14. In the absence of pejorative associations of Caleb, dog-like and according to his heart appear to offer a better negative climax to the introduction. And I would agree. I think that's what's going on here. Just to kind of give you an idea of how this plays out, right? Like there's a few other places here. Just scrolling to see if I can find them. Where heart
While you're getting to that,
is used.
Louisville
Yeah.
Reads
Oh,
$5. Lesson of the day, guys, don't be dumb, or David will steal
be
your
dumb.
wife. Treats for Dagon.
yes.
King David, aka it's Mr. Steal Yo Girl.
In Abigail's speech, listen to the words of your slave. Please let my Lord not set his heart to this man of Belial. Right? Later on, she says, let this not be for you an obstacle and an offense of heart for my Lord, to shed blood for nothing, save my Lord himself. And then, as I mentioned, right, when morning came, when the wine evacuated from Nabal, then his woman told him these words, and his heart died inside of him. He became a stone. So I think that's it. Like I think that's it. I think this is just more of the delightfully
remember that
clever
time
wordplay.
that the prophet said, I will take out your heart of stone and put in a heart of flesh.
Yeah. Is that Isaiah? I think. Or Jeremiah? I should know this. Shoot. But yeah. That's now importantly, his heart didn't become stone. His heart died.
No, just died.
And he became stone. So yeah. But yeah, all this stuff. It's very cool. So that's now all this to say, and I've got a couple of other things here from some commentators that I'll read, but I think what the Deuteronomist is doing is he's doing a few things here, right? He's telling this story of this morality tale of wisdom and folly, right? He is also saving David from blood guilt of killing Nabal, and then also as a way of reinforcing and promoting just what a great guy David is. He's pretty awesome. And as you read the story, as I read the story in my translation, I hope like some of this stuff comes through as just over the top, right? Like
No.
I love this part.
David?
When David sends his messengers to Nabal, and he says all this to them: strength for life, peace to you, peace to your house, peace to all that is yours. So then, I have heard that you are currently sharing which means it's got a lot of wool kicking around. The shepherds.
Also, when you watch some media and it's somebody bribes a corrupt magistrate and they go all out to be like, oh, according to all of the good deeds you have done, and definitely not the bribe you just gave me, look how
Yeah.
charitable things are for you. And just, wow, wouldn't you know that you have the best stuff and you've been super gracious. And this day we preach peace to you. Definitely not on behalf of the bribe. You know, good tidings. Like, it's very overcompensating.
Very overcompensating. But then he says this, right? The shepherds who are yours were with us. So he's saying, you know, they were hanging out with us earlier. And we didn't harass them.
Yeah.
How nice of David to not harass them, nor were they missing anything of theirs the entire time. So we didn't bother them, and we didn't steal anything. Aren't we great?
Yeah.
We're awesome. And
Listen,
now
we work for a warlord, but it doesn't mean we're crappy people.
no, it couldn't mean that. Ask your boys, your own boys. They'll
Yeah.
tell you.
Check with the lads.
Yeah. Though, and they came back, like those injuries that they sustained when they came back to you, that we had nothing to do with that. Then
That
he
was
says
a turn
this.
of events.
That was a turn of events. that was Yahweh turning their hearts, them to stone. Yeah. Okay. Now let my boys find favor in your eyes, for they have come on a good day. Look what a good day it is. You're shearing, lots and lots of wool lying around here. Looks like you've got a lot of provisions just kicking around. Things seem pretty good. Please give us what you find in your hand, so that your slaves and your son, you can give them to your slaves and your son, David. Like this is a shakedown.
Yeah,
This
it
is what this is, right? This is a shakedown. So
sure do have a lot of wool there.
yeah, be a shame, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Listen,
You should just give all
I
that
know,
wool that you definitely don't need.
I know these shepherd boys you have hanging around.
Yeah.
They were hanging out with us, and we didn't hurt them at all, and we didn't steal from them.
Those bruises
Nothing.
were there when we found them.
Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, maybe because we're such nice guys, you could just give us some of that, some of those provisions. That's it.
I mean, you have a lot of it. You're not going to use all of that.
Not all of it. No. So, just gonna read a couple of. We'll talk about this here in a second. So I'm going to draw some attention here to Abigail's speech in verses 24 to 31. This is according to this is Ald again. He says it's pretty good commentary, actually. Those Old Testament libraries are hit and miss, but this one's pretty good. So he says Abigail's speech must be one of the longest in Samuel. She is not only a beautiful woman, but a wise one as well. Smart and pretty. As we shall see, her approach to David anticipates in several respects the approach of the wise woman from Tekoa, engaged by Joab in 2 Samuel 14. If Nabal's response to David's messengers reminds us of a psalm, this whole narrative could be read as an illustration of the second half of Proverbs 11. The relationship with Proverbs 11:22 is particularly interesting. A gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman who departs to Abigail is beautiful. and David praises her ta'am. That's her form. Verse 33. See below on the meaning of this term. One of the issues for interpreters of this story is just how far this human gold ring is seeking to disengage herself from the pig's snout. There is an urgency and a breathlessness about her. This repeats itself several times in the text. She was quick. She says, and now, wa'ata, 3 times in verses 26 to 27. And this way of speaking is yet a further illustration of the speed with which she habitually acts. However, the most striking element of her whole address to David is the fact that she calls him my Lord as many as 14 times.
Oof.
Nabal's staff twice speak of him to Abigail as our Lord. Presumably, they include her in this description. They no doubt think of Nabal as Abigail's Lord too. The narrator calls him more neutrally her man, her husband.
Mhm.
While to David, she herself calls Nabal this man of Belial. But that term, by the way, Belial, that basically means worthless, no good. This
Mhm.
man of worthlessness. I think it's a bit of a in First Samuel, it's chapter 2 or chapter 3. In describing chapter 2, in describing the sons of Eli, it kind of makes a neat little play on words there. It says the B'nai Eli are B'nai Belial. The sons of Eli are sons of worthlessness. It's pretty great. But this is, so she calls him this, and then the one slave, you remember the one snitchy slave who went back to tell Abigail everything was happening. He said that Nabal is like a son of Belial. He's a worthless man. You can't even talk to him, is what he says. It's impossible to talk to this guy because he is so like aggravatingly stupid. He's stubborn. He's mean. He's yeah. So yeah. So that's all really. That's all. Here, this is from Ralph Klein. He has this comment on verse 26, which so verse 26, there's this interesting part of her response where she seems to prophesy the outcome of David's of David's wars of Yahweh, right? There it is. I swear, my Lord, as God lives, as you live, Yahweh, who has kept you from seeking redress by blood with your own hands, let your enemies and all who would harm my Lord fare like Nabal. So it's kind of, this is some commentators have suggested that this is really the Deuteronomist strongest contribution to the story, that he's sort of thrown this in there to kind of tie a lot of this stuff together with what follows it. So here, this is what Klein says. He says, verse 26 seems to anticipate the conclusion of the story, and so it is moved by McCarter. That's P. Kyle McCarter. Between verse 41 and 42, we think the problem arose because of the Deuteronomist's additions. Her oath is based on the life of Yahweh and the life of David, perhaps an adumbration of his coming royal character. The two things that could have discredited David were guilt for shedding blood, no matter how justified it might seem to be in this case, and overstepping the bounds in talking about his own victory. Whereas David boldly refused the opportunity to kill Saul in chapter 24 and chapter 26, only the action of Abigail prevents him from blood guilt in the case of Nabal. What's his first name? Levinson. wrote a very important article about this way back in 1978, but it was really good. So Levinson sees chapter 25. John Levinson, thank you. Did somebody actually say that? I'm thanking my brain.
No.
Okay. Or Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Levinson sees in chapter 25 the first revelation of David's dark side, whose fruition is the adultery and murder involved with Bathsheba and Uriah. Now, think about how similar the pattern of this story resembles that one of David and Bathsheba too, right? Beautiful woman. For David, an inconvenient relationship. Of course, Nabal's just a terrible guy. Uriah is not. The man dies, and David takes the woman. So here it's fine. The second time, it's not, right? So this is chapter 25 is the first revelation of David's dark side. Gaining victory by one's own hand is a flaw in Deuteronomistic theology. Abigail's actions are the proximate cause for David escaping guilt, but the real protector of the future king's integrity is Yahweh himself. Abigail prays that Yahweh's enemies and those who seek to do him harm will be cursed, just like Nabal. In the context, one of these foes would be Saul. So, and that's something else that commentators have pointed to in this story is how Nabal looks like he could, like, this could also look like just sort of a moral tale in which Nabal is kind of a stand-in for Saul. It takes place right in the middle of these stories, in which David is running from Saul, and this is the account of what some call the Saulite wars, the wars between the house of David and the house of Saul, if there were such things, right? So that's all very interesting. And then I've got one more here. So this is another one from Ald commenting on verses 41 to 43. So Abigail's response so this is after Nabal has died. David sends messengers to tell Abigail that he's taking her home with him. Abigail's response to David's messengers is interesting. First of all, she treats his representatives as ambassadors. Remember, at this point in the story, David's like a brigand. He's not the king yet. So she treats him like one. As she has David himself doing full obeisance before him on the ground. She buries her nose in the dirt, literally. And then she says that she is ready to serve them, David's slaves, below her status. It is not always easy to detect the difference between Amma, which means slave woman, and Sifha, which also means slave woman. I translated that one as slave girl in this context to distinguish the two. However, where they are clearly distinguished, as here, the Sifha has a lower status. Writing of Ruth, Jack Sasson notes that her first encounter with Boaz in Ruth 2 verse 18, in that text, she describes herself as a Sifha. He comments on her new self-description in chapter 3 verse 9 by now using the term Amma. Ruth imagines herself as ranking among those females who might be taken from a free man or by a free man, either as a concubine or a wife. For the widow of Nabal, about to be wife of David, the term Amma might already suggest self-abasement, but describing herself as Shifcha and ready to wash the feet of David's staff is to go a stage still further. This is kind of one of the remarkable things I find in this story, is just in this response of hers. He's like, come on, baby. Let's go. I'm taking you home with me. And her response, and this is literally the last we ever hear about Abigail, from Abigail, except for after David becomes king, there is a listing of offspring, of children. She's mentioned once more in the entire text, and that's to note that she had a son. And there's some discrepancy on whether his name was Chileab or, I believe, Daniel. There's a couple different options there. But
Hate to be the wet blanket. I actually do have to go because I have spooky day
God
plans.
damn it! All right, I could always continue without
Yep.
you. I'm sorry that.
Okay.
But because I have more. But thank you, Vish,
Oh man,
for coming
Yeah,
and
I
hanging out with us.
would love to stay and listen to more stuff about Abigail and how she definitely had nothing to do with her idiot husband's untimely demise.
Nothing to do. Well, it's yeah.
Not
So yeah,
one
it's
thing.
probably good you're going, because I might pop that bubble in
Okay.
in the next section, but it's okay. I'm actually just pulling up the Safari text like
Nice.
you had it. So thank you for coming and hanging out, Fish, and have a happy Halloween.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
we'll see you on Dappers tomorrow.
Yes, we'll be on Dappers tomorrow.
Yes.
For the last time at noon. I'm very excited to get back to doing these at 11 a.m.
Woo, fun times. Anyway,
All right.
yay, spooky times. Bye.
Bye. All right. It's just me. Guys, I have to say, this is a little weird because it has been a very long time since I've done this just by myself. So, before I continue further, I think I noticed there was another super chat here, so I'll get that out of the way fast. Gordon Love Science for $20 says, thanks for clarifying for me why my wife's nickname for me is Nabal. That is unfortunate. I'm sorry, Gordon. I really need to pay more attention to the Bible. Great commentary this evening. Thank you. So where was I here? So let's okay. Yeah. So to finish up here, there's actually not a ton left, but I do want to talk about we've talked a lot about what the Deuteronomist is doing with this story, how he's using this story as a morality tale, illustrating the difference between wisdom and folly, how he's using it to promote the ideal of David. He's doing some work on his reputation, ensuring that everybody is aware that that he was honorable in this instance. And this on its own raises the question, but I think the entire story, and we've talked a little bit about how over the top some of it is. So what if this is something that happened? What if this is part of the story of David's actual rise to power in defeating Saul, in taking over the throne of Israel and of Judah, and in basically becoming the first king in Jerusalem? What if this story is reflective of an historical reality behind that? In the first place, something that we would see right away, what we would know at the outset, is that as I pointed out before, if these were actual people, Abigail and Nabal and David, one thing we know for sure is that the man's name was not Nabal. It was something else that has been scrubbed by the Deuteronomistic editor of the story. The other things that we should consider when approaching this text, and really when approaching a lot of these texts, and this is one of the reasons why guys. This is one of the reasons why I wrote this book. This is one of the main themes of the. I mean, it's in the title. We need to be sensitive to propaganda when we're reading the Bible. And we see this very clearly, I think, when it comes to specifically the stories of David. I spent a lot of time in the book talking about the succession narrative. I think this is another really good example of the propaganda of the Deuteronomist as he's working very hard to rehabilitate, to whitewash the reputation of this man, this very problematic figure for the people of Judah, their dynastic founder, David. So yeah, this could be total fiction. But how does this story read if this is an actual event? And I'm going to read it again just to kind of drive home this point, and I'll put it up on the screen too. And so Verse 25:17, bear with me. Okay. First Samuel 25. All right. Starting in verse 2. There was a man in Maon, and his work was in Carmel. The man was very great. He had 3,000 flock and 1,000 goats. So right away, what we learn about this man, who the text calls Nabal, but that wasn't actually his name, is that he's rich. And if he's rich, then that also means within this ancient Canaanite, ancient Israelite context, this also means that he's powerful. He's probably a rival of David. David is a brigand. He is, in the course of these stories, in the wars with the Saulites, the wars with Saul, one of the things that becomes abundantly clear, and we see this illustrated in a few texts leading up to this story, that David is kind of wandering around. He's living out with his men in the wilderness, and they're kind of wandering around from place to place, and they're not popular. They will go to various towns, and the people are not always happy to see them. They don't want them around. They're a nuisance. They're probably doing as warlords do and attempting to assert their dominance and extort resources. So let's think about that as we think about this man, whom the text calls Nabal. Probably a powerful man who controls a region, perhaps. He could be a rival. He could be someone that David has set his sights on as a man to target in order for David to develop and increase his own power and influence in the area. This is a man that he needs to take care of. So how does the rest of the story read then? The name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his woman was Abigail. The woman had good insight and beautiful form. Just going to move that up. The man was hard and wicked of deeds. He was kalbo. He was according to his heart. David was in the midbar, in the wilderness, when he heard that Nabal was shearing his flock. So he's heard that this wealthy rival of his happens to be shearing his sheep. So he's in a vulnerable position in which it's easy to shake down the man in this situation. So that's what David goes and does. David sent 10 boys, and he said to the boys, "Go up to Carmel, and you will come to Nabal, and you will inquire on his well-being in my name. So you shall say, strength for life, peace to you, peace to your house, and peace to all that is yours." So then, he says, I'm just moving the text down. I have heard that you are currently shearing. The shepherds who are yours were with us, and we did not harass them, nor were they missing anything of theirs the entire time they were in Carmel. Ask your own boys, and they will tell you. Now, please let these boys find favor in your eyes, for they have come on a good day. Please give what you find in your hand to your slaves and to your son, to David. So David's boys came, and they spoke something like all of these words in the name of David. Then they waited. But Nabal responded to the slaves of David, and he said, "Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? These days, there are a lot of slaves running off from before their owners. Am I to take my bread, my watered, my butchered meats that I butchered myself for my shearers, and give them to men who come from I don't know where?" Now, think about this. Think about what Nabal has said and why he's saying this. First of all, it's interesting. He makes this jab, right, to David. He says here, oh, I didn't put the text in, sorry guys. See, this is why my Vish is so helpful. Yeah. So this is where he says he says this interesting thing here. There are many slaves nowadays who run away from their masters. He says that because what David has done is he has rebelled against Saul. As the story goes, David was once in the company of Saul. David was once part of Saul's inner circle. David was given Saul's daughter as a woman, and he has betrayed him. So Nabal is a rival, but he's also responding to David very much, no, not tongue in cheek, but he's responding to David and pointing out that David is, a good for nothing who has rebelled against his own master, and he's just trying to make a name for himself. So yeah, I think that's interesting. So the slaves, all right. Go back to the text here. Sorry, guys. Okay. So the slaves of David turned around on their way. They went back, entered in, and reported to him something like all these words. And David said to his men, "Every man strap on your sword." So every man strapped on his sword. David also strapped on his sword, and they went up after David as a company of 400, while 200 sat with the weapons. But to Abigail, the woman of Nabal, one boy from the group of boys reported, "Look, David sent messengers from the midbar to bless our Lord, and he shouted them down." So I'm just going to scroll this up. "These men were very good to us. They did not harass us, nor were we missing anything all the days that we were hanging out with them while we were in the field. They were a wall around us day and night, all the days we were with them, shepherding the flock. Now know and see what you ought to do. This terrible thing is coming for our owner and on his entire house. He is the son of Belial," when speaking to him. Basically meaning it's impossible to speak to this man because he's so obstinate, he's so stupid. So what's happening here in this story, David attempted to shake down Nabal because Nabal is powerful and rich He just said no. He said, fuck you, David, basically. I am not cooperating. And this is how shakedowns go, right? Either you pay or you pay one way or the other. So that's what David resolves to do. He gathers together his band of brigands to go basically kill Nabal and his men and to take by force what they wouldn't give to him. So so the boy talks to Abigail, tells her that she should and I'll skip a bunch of this, tells her that she should go and intercede and talk to David, and she delivers this rather incredible speech, just over the top deferential. Again, there's a lot of over the top deference in this story, from David to Nabal, and now from Abigail to David, extolling him for just what a great guy he is. But she's in a position, and who knows, maybe Vicious, right? Maybe Nabal really was an idiot and a terrible man, and Abigail, being a bright, talented woman, feels like she's stuck in this bad situation and wants to get out of it. So maybe she's complicit in this. But there's other ways to read this story too. For the Deuteronomist, this is an important way of writing the story. If you're trying to do work on the reputation of David, it's important to point out that Abigail wants more than anything for David to effectively save her from this life that she is living. But what if that's not quite the case? What if Abigail is under duress? What if she is, and I mean, why wouldn't she be? She's come to learn that a brigand and his army is coming to your house to kill all the men and all the slaves. And what that means is that not only are all these people she cares about going to die, she's going to lose everything. They are going to lose everything and become enslaved by this warlord, by this brigand. She's acting quickly, not just in protection of herself and her man, Nabal, but also of her family and her household. These people who look up to her and to her man, who effectively look after them. So this is a move on her part of self-preservation, of the preservation of those things that she cares about, of the preservation of their estate. That's what she's doing here. She's trying to intercede in hopes that she can reason with this man who's coming to kill her family. So that's what's happening here. Now, I think part of this, we've already talked a lot about how interesting it is. I'm just scrolling down to the outcome here. So when Abigail came home to Nabal, and look, he was feasting in the house like the feasting of a king. The heart of Nabal was good upon him, to the point that he was very drunk, so she did not say a word to him, neither small nor great, until the light of morning. Then when morning came, when the wine had evacuated from Nabal, then his woman told him these words, and his heart died inside him. He became a stone, and after 10 days Yahweh struck Nabal, and he died. So did Yahweh kill Nabal? No, of course not. Maybe Abigail killed Nabal in Vish's reading of this story because she's trying to get out of a bad situation. Maybe she took matters into her own hands. After all, she is very smart. So this is something that she could get away with. But what if David killed Nabal? What if the intervention of Abigail was for naught and he just went ahead and slaughtered everyone and took what he wanted in the first place, including Abigail? And that's where I kind of think that what happens here in the outcome is particularly interesting. I look at the way this works its way out in the text. So David's happy that that Nabal is dead, and then it says that he sent he sent messengers to propose marriage to Abigail, to take her as his wife, says the JPS here. I like my translation better. If I can find it. So David sent back and informed Abigail that he was taking her for himself, as to be his woman. And the slaves of David came to Abigail to Carmel, and they spoke to her, saying, David has dispatched us to take you for himself, to be his woman. So it's not like she's my friend and colleague, Dr. Joshua Bowen, and I often will point this out to people. It's not like women in these situations are ever given any real options. Abigail is pressed into this situation where because the way this is supposed to work is that in the event that a woman's man, her husband, passes away, she is then given to his brother, his closest relative, and her husband's, her man's inheritance, all his possessions, then are transferred to the brother, because you have to keep all this stuff in the family. Don't forget, the man that the text calls Nabal is very wealthy. He is a man of much means. So this is an incredibly valuable estate. Abigail is part of that estate. So under ordinary circumstances, she would be handed off to, or she would go to Nabal's closest living male relative, and all the property would be transferred to him and stay within the larger family holdings. That's very important within the worldview of the people who wrote these texts. So for David to come in and just take Abigail, and in taking Abigail, taking all of the estate along with her, this is out of step with how things would ordinarily be done. And I think this provides for us, this is unusual. The reason you do something like this, the reason David does this, and maybe I'll just, where I talk about this in chapter 13 here. The reason this happens, the reason you do these things, is because you're making a play. This is a play for power. Let's see if I can find what I say here. Oh, I think it's earlier. Hold on a sec. I should have marked this page down. Sorry, guys. Actually, the easiest way to find this is probably looking at the index. I go to First Samuel, chapter 25, 349. So yeah, here. Um, so this is where I'm talking about the children of David, and here I'll just start to read. David had a son by the wealthy woman Abigail of Carmel. I actually don't think that's. I don't think that's. I think it's an an error within the text now. So Abigail had a son named either Chileab, according to 2 Samuel 3:2, or Deluia in the Septuagint, or Daniel in 1 Chronicles 3 verse 1. Abigail was the former woman of this chief called Nabal. An obvious derogatory smear on the part of the writer, his name meaning stupid. Nabal's holdings were immense. The text says that the man was exceptionally great, having 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, for Samuel 25:2. As was customary in the ancient Near East, David's own ambitions to rule were secured through such conquests. By claiming the woman of his powerful rivals, Saul, the former king of the north, and this unnamed but obviously powerful chieftain in Judah, David was also brazenly asserting his own ownership and control of their houses. So, under ordinary circumstances, you wouldn't do this. The reason you would do this, the reason David does this, is because this is a power play. And right at the end of the story, this is sort of one of the reasons why we have reason to think this. It concludes on this interesting point. David took Ahinoam from Jezreel, and they were, even both of them, his women. That's Ahinoam and Abigail. Ahinoam is one of the wives of Saul, his first wife, I believe. His first woman. So David takes her, and he also takes Abigail, because he's using them to secure his own power in the region. That's what's going on here. That's why we have reason to think that David killed Nabal. Now, and look at, now I also want to finally just look at what Abigail says to David at the end of the story. The last thing Abigail says in the entire biblical text. Sorry, I'm getting my translation back up here. Okay. She rose up. She bowed low her nose to the ground. She's burying her face in the dirt. And said, "Look, your slave woman is a slave girl who will wash the feet of your own slaves." Now, the first time I read that, I voiced that as kind of a cheeky, very deferential statement again of gratitude, such gratitude that she's willing to be in the position of the lowliest of slaves in serving David. She's just that happy that he's come to rescue her. You know, that's in line with how Vish was reading this story. But if this is under duress again, if she is not given any options in this situation, if she has just lost her entire household and her man and all her provisions, and she is being taken away from her family, how does that change the tone of this response? Your slave woman is a slave girl who will wash the feet of her own slaves. Is she just reflecting on the reality of what this is going to be for her? Is it bad Is she being truthful here about how much this has devastated her? Yeah, she's going to be the woman. She's going to be added to the harem of a powerful local warlord who eventually becomes the king. He hasn't yet, though. Is this her reflection on that? Is this her way of saying, you know what? This is pretty much the worst thing that could happen to me, says Abigail. I don't know, but I think these are some of the ways that I think it's useful to think through these texts. This is how the propaganda works, right? This is how these stories are spun in rehabilitating the reputations of incredibly problematic men. So Joe Baden has written a really good book on David. What's it called? Somebody probably knows. Let me see here. Actually, it's called The Historical David. So it's right there. He's got a couple of comments, and this is the direction he goes in this story. That David is a brigand, a local warlord. He's a despot who has murdered. He has killed a rival and stolen all of his shit. He's increased his own power and his own influence in the area because that's what despots do. He's got a couple of insightful, interesting further comments on this. I'll just read to you. So, we go back to Nabal's response to David, where he says to him, I'll just go back and read this again, what he says to him. Sorry, there's a lot of scrolling back and forth here. Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? These days, there are a lot of slaves running off from before their owners. Am I to take my bread, my water, my butchered meats that I butchered myself for my shearers, and give to men who come from I don't know where? So in his response here, there's a comment first from Ald. Nabal is not persuaded. He does not trust David, obviously. And there is no question of his sharing food, only to be cheated later. His answer could have Psalm 41, verse 9 in mind. Even the man of my peace, whom I trusted, who was eating my bread, has enlarged against me his heel. The use of the psalm of an expression using akev, meaning heel, is suggestive of another fraught biblical relationship, and that's Laban. Laban's cheating and being cheated by his heel-catching relative Yaakov, or Jacob, in Genesis chapter 29 to 31. As many commentators have noted, both Laban and Nabal are the other name read backwards. Maybe there's some of that here too. So this is from Joel Baden in his book, The Historical David. Nabal not only knows who David is, even though he asks this question, who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? He not only knows who he is, he knows which side deserves his allegiance. Here again, we see two key features of David's wilderness experience: that he is known, people know who he is, and that he is unloved. As for David's men, they come from I don't know where in 25:11. The ultimate insult in ancient Israelite society. Almost everyone in the Bible is identified by his or her homeland, as kinship affiliation was on the basis of personal identity. To be without a place and family of birth is to be virtually non-existent. Again, that's why it's so important that Nabal's holdings and his household and his woman are returned to his extended family. This is what it means to enter the wilderness. And we may note that once David enters the wilderness, he is never again referred to as being from Bethlehem. Like his men, he has effectively renounced his past affiliations. Even his father, Jesse, is mentioned again only as part of David's name. He disappears from the narrative. Nabal knows who David is, but he knows him as a man who has given up all that identifies him as Israelite, as part of a community, and he's chosen to make his way in the wilderness. So here's the point. Beta makes this point about the precarious situation that Abigail has found herself in when David is set on killing her husband. In Israel, when a woman's husband died, the husband's family was responsible for providing a new husband for her from within the clan, so that the family's land holdings would not pass to an outsider, a concept known as levirate marriage. This arrangement also ensured the security of the widow, for without protection from her husband's clan, she would be vulnerable. If a widow could not find a husband, she was to return to her father's house for the same reasons. Deuteronomy repeatedly aligns the widow with orphans and resident aliens, the two other classes of people who would not have kinship protection. Abigail was particularly vulnerable, as she seems to have had no son and was therefore the sole inheritor of her husband's property. It would have been unthinkable for her to go off willingly into the wilderness with David and abandon her familial security and kinship obligations. It is therefore far more likely that David married her by force, on the strength of the armed men standing around Abigail and her newly killed husband. Remember, they just came there and they told her what was happening. We're taking you. We're taking you to David. You're his now. And in her only response to that is, I guess I'm looking forward to a life of living like a slave and washing your feet. Baden continues. It's safe to say that despite holding the nominal title of clan chief after killing Nabal, David did not have the power to enforce his newly acquired status. If he was not allowed to stay even for a few days in the small towns of Keilah and Ziph, there are stories earlier in the narrative of how David is run out of these smaller towns because people don't want him there. It is unlikely that the entire tribe over which Nabal controls would have permitted him to occupy the tribal leadership. David had, after all, killed their chief and broken the established custom of levirate marriage, thereby depriving the tribe of its rightful land. He was not prepared to impose his will on these people, but he took what he needed and had prepared himself well for the future. Should the time ever come when David had enough power to return, he would bring with him Abigail, the living proof of his right to rule. As the physical embodiment of David's newly acquired title, Abigail was the real prize. This raises the suspicion that the protection racket was not the end game, but rather a preparatory move. What David needed was Nabal dead and Abigail to be his wife. It seems likely, then, that David knew very well that Nabal would never accept his terms, nor should Nabal have expected to. If he was the chief of, Baden calls them the Calebites, I don't think that's right, he would have felt little threat from a band of hooligans, especially one that had been rejected at every previous stop. David must have known it would come to this. So David killed Nabal, not Yahweh. And I don't think it was Abigail either, even though she's pretty badass. in the story. So, and as so many women in the Bible do, she's just doing what she can, right? Under less than ideal conditions of how this culture works. All right. So I think that's it for me. I have a super sticker from Noeyu. Thank you very much for the super sticker. I appreciate that. I'm just gonna look through here, see if I can find any other questions that some of you might have had. Bible lesson number 352. If you have a hot wife, don't let them around bad men, or you might get killed and your wife stolen. Yeah, yeah, more or less, right? So just looking through. I hope you guys have enjoyed this today. I've enjoyed this. This was a nice way to spend Halloween. Prixie Purple says, I prefer the one where Abigail is like, this dumbass doesn't get it. David is gonna kill us all. I'm gonna take matters into my own hands. I know, right? That is a much funner story. It really, really is. But how realistic is it? Don't know. Really don't know. Who knows? Maybe we can hope, right? Kip's book is the new Hip Russell's Teapot of Bible nerding. That's right. You can't prove it's not real, right? I want to be like King David when I grow up. Innocent Christian child. Everyone else, wow. Maybe when you get older, we can talk about David. Yeah, very true. Yes, I do like this one, by the way, John Gooderham. Kip Davis has written no books. Correct. Please, everyone, no books. Well, I'll get you out of here in good time, John, I promise. So, and I don't care about the Blue Jays. It just happened to work out this way. My unfinished sock asks, don't cast a widow out to the wilderness. Like and share the stream instead. Yeah. Yes, please. Please do like and share the stream. Let's see. If David had so little power, then how did he kill Nabal without Abigail's help? That's a good question. Yeah, that's not something that we just don't know, right? That's not something that that Baden goes into when he talks about this story. I don't actually talk about this story beyond just setting it up to show what else is going on in the succession narrative, which is what dominates chapter 13. But it's a good question, and again, we just don't know. And I think we have to keep all these options on the table, right? I think the real takeaway here is that you should not trust the Deuteronomist. The Deuteronomist is useful for providing us with a sense of who was there, and in kind of big picture what was going on in the region of Israel, Palestine, in the Levant of the Iron Age, in the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. You know, who was in charge, how long they were ruling. You can sort of squint and see some of the stuff that's there in the text, which probably represents actual things that happened, and I think this is one of them, right? But let's not take the Deuteronomist on his word. He's doing a lot of work, a lot of very hard work to cover up what's really going on, and to create these larger than life figures for his grand narrative. So, you know, people often point out, well, the succession narrative, the stories of David, this must be all accurate history. David must have been an actual guy, because look at how problematic he is in the Deuteronomistic history, and that's true. He's extremely problematic, and I would tend to agree. I think, that is a reason to take this seriously, but that's also a reason to go, there's a lot of stuff in here that looks like it's just a lot less plausible. So I would say the Deuteronomist's version of this story is far and away the least plausible version of this story. Vish and Prixie are holding a candle for smart and pretty Abigail, who was in a bad situation with a terrible man, saw a way out, and she took it. She was part of this plot, and she lived happily ever after. So there's that. And then there's my very cynical view that this is all cover for a brigand who murdered a powerful rival and stole all of his shit, including his woman, who did not go willingly into the wilderness with this man who just killed her husband and took her away from her family. So, but you decide, right? You decide, Prixie, what you want out of this story. Will you be doing the succession narrative next? On a live stream? I probably, well, you know what? Like I'm at some point, maybe I would encourage you to check it out in the book. I will at some point. I'll cover the stuff that I've covered in here. I don't know about next, but eventually, and I can talk some more about it. And as I've been thinking, my own thinking on some of this has developed and changed a little bit, even since I wrote this. But I think chapter 13 I wrote back in when I can tell you when I wrote chapter 13. Let's see. That was I have too many folders and too much shit. Okay. I finished chapter 13 in probably, I think it's a little, yeah, so I think January, February 2025. But even since I finished chapter 13, some of my thinking has changed on the succession narrative. So I'm tempted actually to just write do another book project at some point on just the succession narrative, similar to what Joel Baden did in his book on the historical David. But yeah, we'll see. The Deuteronomistic history is definitely among my favorite parts of the Bible. Overall, really enjoy the insights. Oh, your insights on it. Thank you very much. And I yeah, mine too. It's a very good read, especially if you learn how to read it critically. And that's what I'm trying to encourage everyone to do. That's part of the purpose of these streams, is to teach you how to do some of this stuff, to look at the text you're reading and going, okay, really, how do we think through this text? How do we assess what the writer is doing in these stories? So yeah, but I appreciate the support as always. What happened to Abigail's sons? So here's the other thing about this, and this is also part of why I think that she was probably not a willing participant in this. After those last words of Abigail, we never hear from her again. The only thing we ever hear about her again is that she gave birth to a son, who was the second son in David's household. His eldest was Amnon, his Bechor. So his inheritor, the one who would follow after him, was Amnon. Amnon was the son of Ahinoam. Ahinoam was the former woman of Saul that David stole from Saul's harem. His second son was Chileab or Daniel, who was the son of Abigail. And that's we never hear anything further about the child or about Abigail, only that was the name of the child that she bore for him. David's third son was Absalom, who also attempted a coup. And his fourth son was Adonijah, who also attempted a coup. Or did he? And the son who succeeded David, the son through whom the house of David was established, was Solomon. Solomon was the 10th son of David, and he was the son of Bathsheba, whom he violated and stole. And what else was I going to say about that? Oh, Solomon's name means replacement. So I'm just throwing that out there. All of this stuff is very interesting, and all of this stuff I cover in chapter 13 of the book. So Aunt Jer, once the audiobook comes out, you should do a book club about your book. Possibly members only. Oh yeah, actually that is a very good idea. So I think, yeah, maybe I should plan on that. I like that idea very much. So yeah. And by the way, I finished the audio for chapter 13 2 days ago, and I'm presently working on chapter 14. I have 4 chapters left. Chapter 13 is it's the biggest chapter in the book. The audio is 2 hours and 15 minutes on its own. So the remaining 4 chapters will go a little bit quicker than that one. But I think I can get it all done before I go to SBL. I'll be going to SBL on the 21st of November until the 25th of November. I was going to make an announcement. Somebody reminded me of something, and I was going to make an announcement. And now I don't remember what I was going to announce. Oh, well, maybe it'll come back to me. And no, Chileab is not mentioned anywhere else in the Bible. These are one-offs. Storytime Jesus says 2 Abigails are 1. The only Abigails in the Bible are David's wife. Yes, that's correct. David has a sister named Abigail, whom we only hear about once in the story. But thank you for pointing that out. Chuck says, all of this makes me wonder if the Deuteronomist is a contemporary storyteller of David or if he comes later. Most scholars are agreed that he's writing later, that the first version, at least, of the Deuteronomistic history is produced in the rule of Josiah. This is my opinion. I think that there was a version of the Deuteronomistic history that came out during the reign of Josiah in an effort to legitimate the reforms of Josiah and lionize his administration. I think it probably ended with there's towards the end of chapter 23 there, I think it is. Let me see if I can find it really quick here. 2 Kings 23. I think that the first version of the Deuteronomistic history ended with this. I think it ended, Josiah did away with the necromancers. Let's see. Yeah, I'll just read this whole thing. So this is 23:21 to 25. I think this is the original ending of the first version of the Deuteronomistic history. The king, that's Josiah, commanded all the people, offer the Passover sacrifice to Yahweh your God as prescribed in the scroll of the covenant. Now the Passover sacrifice had not been offered in that manner in the days of the chieftains who ruled Israel, or during the days of the kings of Israel, or the kings of Judah. Only in the 18th year of King Josiah was such a Passover sacrifice offered in the manner of Yahweh in Jerusalem. Josiah also did away with the necromancers and the mediums, the idols and the fetishes, all the detestable things that were to be seen in the land of Judah and Jerusalem. Thus, he fulfilled the terms of the Torah recorded in the scroll that the priest Hilkiah had found in the house of Yahweh. There was no king like him before who turned back to Yahweh with all his heart and soul and might, in full accord with the teaching of Moses, the Torah of Moses, nor did any like him arise after him. The end. Isn't that a nice happy ending? So I think that was an approximation, at least, that the original version of the Deuteronomistic history was written maybe during the life of Josiah, even before he had died, or right at the point when he was tragically, unexpectedly killed in battle by Pharaoh Necho when he went to meet him at Megiddo, foolishly. I think that's when it's written, and I think all of this stuff in scrubbing the reputation of David is, in a roundabout way, furthering the reputation of Josiah. He's the greatest king since the dynastic founder, right? Since David. We're kind of stuck with the dynastic founder, so it's better to make him look really good. The rest of the guys in between don't really matter so much, just because it's about this culmination, right? It's about ensuring that Josiah is keeping the Torah, which is the book of Deuteronomy, and that he's just as good, if not better, than David. So, but a lot of this source material, though, Chuck, I think is earlier. Like, I think these stories about David that the Deuteronomist is writing are older, and that he's working with this older material that he's got to fix. So, and I'll say one more thing, and this is a bit of a teaser about the book, about chapter 13. Genesis 38. Genesis 38 is connected to the succession narrative in 2 Samuel chapter 9 through 1 Kings chapter 2. That's all I'll say about it, because I don't want to spoil it. It's too good. But I encourage people to check that out. So yes, John Gooderham, I'm hoping to have the book done before I leave for SBL on the 21st. Nabal dies after drinking too much at a sheep shearing festival. The sheep shearing festival is only otherwise mentioned in the incest stories of Tamar and Judah, and Tamar and Amnon. Storytime Jesus is picking up what I'm putting down. And Mark Nagal, I think David really existed? And if he existed, was he really a king? And yes, to both of those questions, I think there was a David. And I think he was the first king of Israel. I think that he was the one. I think there was probably a rivalry for kingship coming out of the tribal confederacy. And I think that the three principals involved in this were Saul and Jonathan, who was not his son, and David. So I think they competed, and David won. And I think that the stories of David in 1st and 2nd Samuel are drawing from old sources which tell these tales. And I think that that David was the first king in Jerusalem. He not the first king in Jerusalem, but he was the first of his line in Jerusalem who established the dynasty that basically controlled Jerusalem all the way up until the exile. So the dynastic succession is very, very important to the Deuteronomist, to the chronicler especially. We've never even talked about the chronicler. But it's also just really important in the mythology of the Judean kingdom. So I think now, having said that, like, what is a king in this period? So a king is a man who controls a city and has control over a surrounding area. I think this kingdom was pretty small. There certainly wasn't a united kingdom, and in fact, for much of the history of the kingdom of Judah up to the Assyrian invasion and destruction of Samaria in 722 BCE, the city of Jerusalem, the house of David, was a vassalage in the service of the house of Omri, the house, the kings who ruled in Samaria were much more powerful and more influential. And even within the text, you get some echoes of this. There's a story that I'm just thinking of right now. I think it's in First Kings chapter 13. No, somewhere between chapter 13 and chapter 18. I know that much, at least. It might be chapter 15. So there's a story there about how is it I think it's Jehoshaphat, the king of, actually, I mentioned it in here, so I can probably find it without too much trouble. Okay. Yeah. Okay. First Kings 22 actually tells of King Ahab, who was in Samaria, and he's the son of Omri, the great dynastic founder in the north, and how it was King Jehoshaphat. There's a story of how he approaches King Jehoshaphat and asks him to come and fight against the Aramites with him. Because he does this, because he's the suzerain, he comes and says, "Hey, you're my vassal. I need you to come and fight with me." So, there's echoes of this in the text, even though it's one of the interesting things of the Deuteronomistic history, and this is part of the propaganda, right? One of the interesting things is that there are these vassalages that were in place. They're never mentioned. They're never mentioned or even hinted at by the Deuteronomists. They're just completely whitewashed. And the reason for that is because one of the projects of the Deuteronomist is to elevate the Judean kingdom, elevate the house of David, as if it was always at least as good, if not better, than the northern kingdom in Samaria, the house of Omri. So, yeah. Just going. It's based on a class that I have taught. So it's maybe I'll do another one sometime. So, oh yes, and that reminds me of what I'm going to say at the end, This makes me think even more that Abigail was in on it if he also had a sister. If it was his sister, then maybe she was like, David, this guy is a dick. Help me. But that's weird though. And this is the thing, like, I don't know, like it's not like these sorts of sister royal, these sorts of sister wife relationships in Canaan are not, they're not, it's a thing in Egypt, right? Like this is very much an Egyptian cultural thing. Seems much less so a Canaanite cultural thing. So I wonder if that's kind of icky to them. So Archival Blob says Baden posits that the oldest strata of Samuel and its awkward David apologetics point to it being in some sense authentic. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Trying to spin real things to not look bad. So what I say in the book is that there's this story in the succession narrative, 2 Samuel chapters 9 through 1 Kings chapter 2. That's the propaganda that's working overtime to scrub the reputation of David. Genesis 38 is the foil to that. This is the outsider's story. This is the critique. So yeah. And when you look at them that way, you can really see how like some of these differences, right? John Gooderham. So Deuteronomy was the book found in the temple during Josiah's I think you meant to say not his reincarnation. I think you meant to say his reformation. Some form of it. Some have suggested that certainly not the entire book of Deuteronomy, but like a core part, perhaps the law code just on its own, perhaps just the Song of Moses that appears in Deuteronomy 32, which is my opinion. So yes, that's the scholarly opinion. Yeah, actually, reincarnation may be appropriate if the Deuteronomist basically begins as Moses ends, and Joshua, Jesus begins, ending with Josiah as the ending of Israelite history, waiting for Josiah. Interesting. Yes, I am. That's awesome. I'm happy to hear all about it, Lawrence, tomorrow night when you will be my special guest on Budget Scripture Saturday. Today's stream won't be that long, but Kip's gonna Kip. Look, it's not 4 hours, right? Oh, look, I got a super chat from Chuck. Just squaring up for that detailed answer. Thank you. I'm only on chapter 7. Looking forward to chapter 13. Appreciate it very much, Chuck. And yes, I really like chapter 13. In fact, I have a couple of favorite chapters in the book. 13 definitely, 17 definitely. They're towards the end. I really like chapter 5 and chapter 9 as well, and chapter 11. But thank you. Yeah, David and his lover Jonathan, probably. There definitely wasn't a united monarchy, but I think he was just another warlord. Ah, okay, so not a king. And you guys are making me feel bad about the fact that I've been going for 3 hours. How can Kip claim to have a doctorate without holding vassalage over at least a few master's students? Yeah, that's a good point. I've had one master's student. And I'm sure he won't mind. Brandon Diggins was my MA student, and he graduated with flying colors. It's been 2 years now. He's a great guy. So yeah, and he wrote on unclassified Aramaic fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls. So yeah, I think I'm caught up. So maybe we will we will shut it down. Thanks, guys, for coming and hanging out for 3 hours. It's 5 o'clock, which means my dogs are hungry. I have to go feed them, and I've invited all the kids over for dinner. So I'm gonna start. I probably have to do some shopping, and then I'm gonna start some supper. But that reminds me of what I was going to mention. Somebody asked about courses. I am just finishing up my Hebrew course. The third semester of my Hebrew course. So I will be starting up again in the new year. If you're interested in learning Hebrew, if you're interested in learning Hebrew from me, there should be a sign up, like an email wait list over at digitalhammurabi.com. I'll be talking to Megan about it here in the next few weeks about getting an actual link posted, and we'll be starting up in January, probably like mid-January, maybe even towards the end of January. The course is divided into 3 individual semesters, which equals about what you would get probably in a full year at university. And by the end of 3 courses of Hebrew, you would be able to actually open up your Hebrew Bible and read substantial portions of it with a dictionary. So it's divided into 3 semesters of 10 lectures each over the course of either 10 or 11 weeks, usually 11 weeks, because I like to take a bit of a break in between. It costs $250 for all 10 lectures. All the lectures are recorded, and they are available for you online permanently. So if you ever miss anything, you can always go back and watch. If you ever feel like that you're missing something after you took the course, then you can go back and watch. I am using Josh's textbooks, his Introduction to Biblical Hebrew, volumes 1 through 3. Volume 1 will actually be published in the month of November, next month. So, yeah, if you want to learn Hebrew, come and learn with me, starting in January, mid or late January. So watch for that. I'll be talking about that a fair bit more in the future. So yeah. And then tomorrow is Saturday. I will be on Dapper Dinosaur's channel at noon, as per usual, with Vishanti. And then at 7 o'clock, I will be back here with Nitty for Budget Scripture Saturday, and our special guest, Lawrence from the Behold Network. Very excited about it. So I hope to see everyone tomorrow. Thank you, Maya, for posting the website. That's good of you. And with that, I guess there is nothing else to say. It's always hard for me to find the outro. It's hard for me to find the outro, but you know what? There's nothing else to say except happy Halloween, enjoy your candy, and hot tikva.